From the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, thank you for tuning in. You've heard the expression, the pen is mightier than the sword, right?
Yes, I have.
Got a book here I want to talk to you about. It's #1 on Amazon right now. It is called The Stonewall Reader. On June 28th, 2019, this year, it'll be the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, which is considered the most significant event in the gay liberation movement and the catalyst for the modern fight for LGBTQ rights in the United States. The book on Amazon, is this a re-release of the book, Robin? Is this?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes, I do. It's a classic.
It's an anthology chronicling the tumultuous fight for LGBTQ rights in the 1960s and the activist who spearheaded it. On the phone is Jason Baumann. He is with the Susan and Douglas Dillon Assistant Director. Am I reading that right, Robin?
Yes.
For collection development for the New York Public Library. I love that library, by the way.
Yeah.
And coordinates the library's LGBT initiative. If you ever get to New York, take a tour of that library. That's an awesome library. Jason, good morning. What an honor to have you on our show.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Where are you?
I'm in New York and in my office at the library.
You're in the library. Isn't that an amazing library? That's an amazing building.
It's a beautiful, beautiful building, and such an honor and a pleasure to come in every morning. It's really inspiring place.
Wow, I had no idea you were actually in the building. So tell me about this. What happened 50 years ago? What was the Stonewall we're referring to?
So Stonewall Inn was a gay bar in New York City in 1960s.
Where was it?
And it was on it was on Christopher Street, and so there's a reopened. It's not the original bar because it was after the riots. It closes for about 20 or so years, but there's a reopened Stonewall bar there today.
Oh, really?
And so there was about, it's rated by the police, there's about a week of rioting and conflicts between the gay community and the police there in New York City in 1969 that really becomes a turning point in gay and lesbian activism in the United States.
Help us understand that time 50 years ago. Why was there so much stress over lifestyles? I mean, was there a law being violated that shouldn't have been there?
So, in the big picture, and I think this is the hardest thing for us to remember today, so homosexuality was illegal in the United States, really up until ultimately 2003. But really, the oppression most intense in the 1950s and 60s in the United States. And so, actually, we have in the back of the book, there's a chart of penalties for sex offenses in the United States in 1964 that activists in Mattachine Society put together. And so in New York, you could serve 3 months in prison, and it varied by state to Nevada, where you could serve life in prison for homosexuality. But also in New York, you could be arrested for cross-dressing. So there was a real oppression of transgender people in New York, and this was around the country. And also in New York, a bar could be shut down if they gay patrons. So particularly like the Stonewall didn't have a liquor license, and part of the reason they didn't have a liquor license is as a gay clientele, they couldn't risk losing said liquor license, so they operated as sort of a private club rather than a regular bar.
You have first-person accounts and diaries, and you have accounts from Caucasians, African Americans, Japanese, the Latino community. It's amazing.
Yeah, that Kiyoshi Kuromiya, it's the one piece who was a Japanese American who actually grew up in a Japanese internment camp and then became a major activist in gay liberation movement and also Mattachine Society. It's the one piece that's not from the library's collections. It's from William Way Archive in Philadelphia. But I just thought he was such an important and interesting person. I wanted to get him into the book.
You are making a big difference with the book, but I wanted to go back to the writings of that era. I started the interview by mentioning the pen is mightier than the sword, that thing we've heard all of our lives, because that's what changed it, isn't it? I mean, weren't there writers who were reporting and expressing opinions that otherwise people might not be paying attention to, something that needed some attention?
Yeah, most definitely. And several of the pieces, it was activist Kay Lahuzin, and Kay, we have Kay's archive and her partner Barbara Giddings. And so Kay wrote this book, The Gay Crusaders, where she went around right after Stonewall interviewing gay and lesbian activists all over the country. And she really published the book as kind of like as a pulp paperback to try and get it into every five and dime in the United States and every Woolworths, and really, and they saw that the work that they were doing was really to change American society. Also libraries, and so Kay and Barbara got involved in the American Library Association as an effort to change American opinions through reading. You're totally right. That was a major focus.
Jason, are there any stories, and I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, but I have a reason to do this. Are there any stories of police officers that were actually on your side that really, I mean, they were doing their job maybe, but at the same time they were like saying, come on, I know my brother's gay, or I served in the Army in World War II with a guy who was gay. I mean, did you have some empathy from the law enforcement officers themselves?
I mean, Pine, so Officer Pine, who sort of leads the raid, and I don't have Pine's account, but he was interviewed, and I think Pine was very ambivalent about the riot and really saw it much more as being about this issue of did the Stonewall have a liquor license, and that they were trying to get these illegal clubs to get liquor licenses at the time. So I agree. The police, some of them may have been very homophobic. Some of them may have been much more sympathetic. But I think and also you see in the accounts of the newspaper, there was a newspaper writer for The Voice who was there in the bar with Officer Pine, and they were terrified. And I think that comes across. And also, they were so surprised that gay people were fighting back against them. That's the last people that they expected. Well, that was part of Stonewall. They expect, oh, this is a bunch of queens. They're just going to do whatever we say, and then all of a sudden a riot erupts. Well, and that's the issue of Stonewall, even much more than the violence. It was really this, oh my God, these drag queens and gay people are fighting back, and that's what really shocked me.
Oh my God. It's funny the way you say it. But so let me just tell you the reason I asked. My dad was a policeman in New York City in the 60s. And my dad was also a World War II vet. And I mean, he wouldn't have hurt a fly. I mean, but he had a job to do, obviously. But I don't know that he worked down there. But I think he was mostly in the Bronx. But I think he was real empathetic to what the gay community was going through. I don't remember him bad-mouthing anybody, as a kid. But I know sometimes, like, he would have stories of, I had to pick somebody up. I drove around the corner and let them go because they didn't really do anything wrong. He had those stories he would tell us.
It's funny. I had forgotten to mention, so there's this piece with Lily Law, and it's this Tommy Avicoli Mecca, and he was a gay liberation activist in Philadelphia, but several of his parents were police officers. I think his father was a police officer, and it has him getting arrested, and then the police officer recognizing his last name, that he's related to this other police officer, and letting him go, right? And so it is that piece really talks to this whole ambivalence about the people having a job to do. I think you're totally right, but it's in this context of laws that are unjust, right? So that's really the conflict with the police, is these communities. The police may not have these personal opinions, but the laws they're being asked to carry out may be unjust. Right,
and you see this right now with the immigrants. I mean, I think a lot of the officers are doing what they're told to do, but it's not necessarily their. There's a law, and that's their job, is to enforce the law, even if they don't agree with it.
It's a terrible predicament, yeah.
Jason, thank you for this. So did the Stonewall Reader, the book itself, is this a reissue of this book? I'm a little bit confused about that.
No, so it just came out.
Okay.
Many of so it's an anthology. So many of the pieces, some of them were published before, but in the 1960s and 70s, things that we're drawing on. So things that people really haven't read and haven't been in circulation from the 60s and 70s. Some of them are things, oral histories from the library, because we have extensive collections of oral histories, interviews with people from the time, and so drawing on those pieces, and a lot of manifestos and pieces from gay and lesbian and transgender magazines from the 60s and 70s. That was the things that were being written popularly at the time.
We have a copy of the book, The Stonewall Reader. If we have a listener who would like it, just give me a call right now, 622-9622. I'll pick a caller at random, and it'll be waiting for you here at the station. Jason Baumann, thank you for being on the air. Congratulations. The book is #1 right now, by the way.
Oh my God! Thank you. I didn't know that. I have to go and look.
Oh yeah,
Thanks.
go to Amazon right now. You'll see it's #1. Actually, it's #1 in one category, #8 in another, and #9 in another. So you're doing pretty good. You're doing
Fabulous. I got to go look.
Doing pretty good. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You're welcome. We'll be right back. Here is your 1-minute news brief. A plan involving a new toll road through north central Florida is now at the governor's desk.